Alien Covenant. Okay, so let's talk about Alien Covenant right now. So when it comes to Alien Covenant, everybody was pretty excited that Ridley Scott was pretty much coming back, right? Back to the basics, back to the roots, you know, the franchise that he kind of started off with for the most part, and that's basically was awesome. Ridley Scott was coming back home. But that's the thing about coming back home sometimes, right? When you come back home from a long period of time, things can be the same. It can be just as awesome as you kind of left it. You go there, you pick up right where you left off, like no time has passed at all, and it's amazing. Or you kind of come back home, you notice things a little bit more different. Maybe your house got renovated. Maybe you got a flood. Maybe the old posters they used to have are gone. Or maybe just simply put furniture is moved around. It seems too new and too fresh or whatever it may be. Or maybe it just seems too different. And it doesn't seem like as the great times that you kind of had in the old home, to the point where it just feels like a completely different thing. And it doesn't work for you personally. That is basically what we kind of have for Alien Covenant just to begin with. Now, is Ridley Scott back? Ridley Scott is absolutely back. The guy's on fire right now, and I think he actually delivers a pretty good movie here, but he's also back with mixed results. I think the best thing you could probably say about Alien Covenant is just simply put, it adds all, or it pretty much combines all the great aspects of Aliens, and Prometheus, and throws them into this movie, and actually makes a pretty good film. Now, that's not to say that this movie is without its flaws. It is. As I said, it combines the best elements of those three movies, but it also still has some of the problems of Prometheus, just to begin with. Now, this movie is very much an Aliens film, right? Or Alien, whatever you want to call it, but just in the horror aspects of things, it's very much Alien, just to begin with. It has a lot of that tension. It has a lot of that, you know, that like really bone-chilling type of horror, to the point where there's a lot of scenes in here it's gore galore in this movie, right? And they're going to make you literally fucking just tingle in the back of your spine all the way to your ass bone and just be like, ugh, Jesus Christ. You know, there's going to be a lot of traumatizing type of moments in here. And I think it actually delivers on the blood and the gore aspects of the horror stuff. On top of actually having some very good action scenes, which obviously carry over from Aliens, which is actually pretty good. And combining the two actually work. Now, where problems kind of go into the Prometheus territory, from the good parts, it's pretty much the set pieces and the overall, the visual moodiness of the beautifully dark, you know, areas that they tend to be in. I think they are pretty well done, and the movie is spectacularly, you know, lit. I think it's actually a really well done movie on those aspects from the visual flair Prometheus thrown into this movie. On top of the problems, just simply put, adds on to the fact that I feel like the movie does get anchored down by some of the stuff of Prometheus that Ridley Scott is still kind of obsessed with giving you. Now, I don't have a problem with, you know, questions about God or religion or science or whatever it may be. And I actually found some of the, you know, questions that they asked in this movie actually quite good. And actually, I like to think a little bit inside, you know, a specific type of movie. But I also feel like the tone that they're trying to go for the aliens and the horror vibe and the action stuff doesn't necessarily mesh well with some of the philosophical stuff, I guess you could say, that he's trying to throw in from Prometheus. It almost feels like a very tacked on DLC that doesn't really connect that well with the main story. Don't get me wrong, he does it well enough, but sometimes it does feel like it doesn't necessarily need to belong there. Maybe he should just focus on one rather than the other, just to begin with. Now, when it comes to the references to Alien and whatever it may be, that's there. And this is, like I said, this is definitely feels a little bit like Prometheus 2 in some aspects. So if you thought it was just a full-on Alien movie, guess what? You're going to get a little bit of a bonus with Prometheus 2 kind of thrown in there also. Whether that be negative or positive, that's going to be kind of up to you. Now, when it comes to the characters are not necessarily great. Good performances pretty much all across the board from great actors. Unfortunately, the characters are a little bit underwritten to the point where you really don't give a fuck about them once the bodies start, you know, bursting, or just being torn apart, pretty much. So that's kind of one of the biggest problems I have with Alien Covenant. Now, Catherine, I believe her name is Watterson. She's great. I thought she carried herself well. She has a presence. She was actually pretty good. Is she Ripley good? No. But she doesn't have to be really good. She just has to be good in her own special movie, which she actually was. Dan McBride, great. You know, Michael Fassbender is the king of the fucking ship. Even with all his weird things that he probably does in this movie, believe me, there's a lot of them. He is still by far the most lively and the most interesting character on the ship, and this dude is not even legit. When it comes to the characters in this movie, this movie is stuffed. I mean, this movie is bloated and it is fat like a fucking a redneck at a fucking turkey gathering. I mean, like, legitimately, it's fucking bloated with characters to the point where a lot of them don't really get a chance to do anything. There's a few that stand out. There's a few that don't really do shit, and they're just kind of in the background, and they're more expendables than Stallone, you know. But that's just my thought on the matter. But when it comes to the aspects of, like I said, the action, the horror beats, they do that well. The set pieces, they do that well. The characters necessary aren't really well written to the point where, as I said, when they're in peril, you don't really care. You care about some of the actors because you like the actors, but not necessarily the characters. And I think that's where things make a big difference just to begin with. So overall, Alien Covenant does a good enough job at balancing sometimes the action, the horror, and overall the philosophical stuff of all those three movies that I listed previously, but it also has a hard time sometimes juggling them at the same, time for the most part. It's not an easy juggle. Sometimes this movie does stumble, and sometimes it does fall. But it does pick itself back up to a pretty good conclusion, even though it does feel a little bit rushed, and it does feel like we are in a little bit of a rehash for the most part of the original in some cases. And the movie doesn't feel like it is that fresh. I feel like it does things good. The CGI is also not that great for the most part. I kind of noticed that a bit. Or at least in my eye, I thought it was kind of just like a little bit off in some cases. But you have good performances by the cast, just not necessarily good characters, if that makes any sense to people. Now, like I said, the biggest problem with Prometheus was that it was asking smart questions, but it was delivered by dumb people, so it was very hard to kind of take those questions seriously. I think this movie is a little bit more tighter when it comes to the questions, and it doesn't beat you completely over the head, but when it does kind of drag the film out a little bit. There's a twist in the story. I won't mention it, but there's a twist in the story, and it just kind of feels like, okay. You might see it coming. You might not. I don't know. If your eyes are open, you might get it. If you're not, then, it is what it is. But overall, like I said, the movie's entertaining. It's creepy. And it kept me on the edge of my seat to the point where I was very much intrigued. You are never going to be bored in this movie, but you are probably going to wonder when things kind of pick up a little bit. The movie runs at a good pace. Like I said, never bored, never frustrated. But like I said, there are moments where you're just kind of like, well, this isn't really working that well. Maybe they should get back to what the movie was supposed to be, which is just an aliens movie and not Prometheus just kind of thrown in there. But overall, like I said, you're going to enjoy yourself. You're not, but just be prepared that, it is an aliens movie with some Prometheus thrown in there. So if you didn't like Prometheus, then, wait for a rental or something. But comment, subscribe, and like. I'm Chris Smith. Share this video if you can. And I'm signing out.